Hi, my name is Simona Cherepanav, and we are doing the 17th portion of this yearly cycle. The name of this portion is Yitro, who is the Moses' father-in-law, or Zipporah's father. What can we learn from number 17 that can help us remember this very important portion? So it helps me to think about 17 as the seventh prime number. It is 7, meaning the number of completion. It reminds me of the complete calling of the burning bush, Moses being told, go and set my people free. And then he says, you will know that I have sent you when you finish and you come here to this mountain. So now they're here in that mountain. So I would see that as that completion of that part of the what God has spoken to Moses. Then we also can see that 17 is the sum of the first 4 prime numbers, and 4 meaning government, authority. It also helps me think of completeness when I think of 7 plus 10 equals 17, 10 being a congregation or the number of a congregation. I can relate that number as the big assembly that he has now in the nation of Israel. The letter 17 in the Hebrew alphabet is Pe, which means mouth or opening or speech. And of course, we have our Father speaking the 10 words from Mount Sinai and speaking to the whole assembly that is gathered there. So we're going to cover in this portion only the chapter 18. There is so much in this, and I would like to make it a little bit shorter and just make 2 of them or 3 of them if it's needed. So in this portion, it starts by Jethro coming to Moses, and Jethro coming to Moses, bringing his wife and children to the desert. And it says, and Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took in Moses' wife Zipporah after he had sent her away. And I don't know you, but this is the first time I actually paid attention to that. So I looked it up, and this word sent away is shalach. And shalach is used only 3 times in the Tanakh. And it is used, or in the, also called the Old Testament, it is used the first time in this case, meaning as a wife. When it pertains to a wife, it means divorce. Then the second time is when it pertains to a daughter, it could be a dowry, or if the third time was used as a parting gift. Although the word shalach can be used in many other ways, but in this case, that is the definition that the concordance, the Strong's Concordance give to this word. And it continues on verse 3, saying that her 2 sons, one named Gerson, for Moses said when he named Gerson, that I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And the other was named Eliezer, for he said, the God of my father was my help and saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. So sword, Pharaoh meaning like a constricted place, a limiting place, bringing obviously death. And it is something that we can think about that when it pertains to us, that we are in a foreign land. We are not home. This is not our home. Wherever you who are listening to this lives, our home is Israel. Our home is where he placed his name, and where he has his temple, and he has dispersed us throughout the world, but he will bring us all back home when he comes back. So we have to keep that in mind. We're in exile. So going back to the father's house, Zipporah is being sent away by Moses, but now his father is bringing her back, and he's bringing her back to the mountain of God. So for whatever reason, he sent her away, whether it was to protect her during what he didn't know what's going to happen in Egypt, while he is trying to get the Hebrews out of the land. And he probably thought it was safer for her to be home with her father and the children. He didn't know what it was going to be his part, as he is the one bringing deliverance, or the medium where deliverance would come through, and he would speak to Pharaoh and all of that. He didn't know if he was going to die in the process. So whatever the reason was, he sent her home. But now her father brings her with her. And it says, now whether Moses divorced her or not, we see that this is what scripture says. Then Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he had camped at the mountain of God. And he sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. Moses received them, and Yitro, after hearing all that Jehovah had done, he makes a burnt offering, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel come and eat before Jehovah. This is a connection that can be made between the time when Moses saves Jethro's daughters and then marries Jethro's firstborn daughter, Zipporah, and now he brings her back to Moses at the mountain of Jehovah, and Jehovah is saving Israel, his firstborn, and bringing them to his mountain. So the connection is that in both cases, the Savior marries the firstborn saved. So Moses marries Zipporah, and God is betrothing in marriage Israel, the nation he has saved. So another connection would be that, like Moses is a prototype of the father, he divorces Zipporah, but he takes her back, just like Jehovah divorces Israel and takes her back. So then the following day, we continue reading. Yitro advises Moshe about delegating the authority over the people. Our father warns us first of the dangers of taking all the responsibility on our shoulders, and then lays down the rules of his kingdom. We live as a community, as equals with different functions. That comes from our Father. And it came about the next day, it says in scripture, that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from the morning until evening. Now, when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, what is this that you're doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge of all the people, and all the people stand before you from morning until evening? Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, it comes to me, and I judge between them and him and his neighbor, and make known the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law then said to him, the thing that you're doing is not good. You will surely wear out both yourself and these people who are with you, because the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. So that, for some reason, that stopped me in many different ways. Words were coming to my mind and thinking, what does this really mean? So I looked up that word alone. Why wasn't it good for him to do this alone? And that word is badad. and it means isolated, separated, secluded, lonely. We're not to do any type of judgment over others alone, isolated, in seclusion. That means that nobody knows what is it that you're doing, or you are the one who has the last word and nobody else gets saying in it. The other thing that caught my attention was that you sit as judge and all the people stand before you morning and evening. That sit as judge and people standing is a relationship like the one we have with God. So it was almost like you're sitting as God over the people, and they're all standing waiting for you to listen to them. And then the other word that really caught my attention was wear out. So we hear this, oh, I'm worn out. Oh, I'm burned out. We hear this type of sentence used a lot to describe when we are exhausted, when we're stressed out, when we are doing more than we can bear. So I looked that word up, and that verb is nabel. So, and it means to be senseless or foolish. And it reminded me of the word Nabal. That's where it comes from. It has the same roots. And Nabal, if you remember, was Abigail's husband, that she actually says that she apologized because her husband was Nabal, was being foolish the way he treated David and his men. So then it says again that he couldn't do that alone because the task was too heavy. So I looked up that word heavy, which is kabed, which we get also kabad. And it is, when it's talking about God's glory, is heavy, is kabad. But it also means numerous when it talks about something being too large, being too big. So what can we learn from this? There is a principle at the Garden of Eden when our Father said that it wasn't good. And that word there is lo tov, lo being no and tov being good, no good. And it is the same word that we see here when he said it is not good that you do this alone. So we know that when our Father said to Adam that it wasn't good for him to be alone, then he took from his side and he made Eve. It's interesting to me that Adam really is the only one that God grabs some dirt from the earth and he molds it and makes it into him. He creates him from the earth. But when he makes his companion, for him not to be alone, to carry the job, so to speak, or the calling that he has given Adam to have to do here on earth, he doesn't grab another amount of dirt from the ground and creates another human being. He actually takes from Adam, he takes cells from Adam from his side. And if you can think of our Messiah at the cross, it is from his side that he's pierced and water and blood comes out. It is the bride comes out of him, out of his side, just like Eve, Adam's bride, comes out of his side. So, and then we have children from all humanity, for that matter, comes out of the cells from both of them that divide in another human being. So we don't have, again, another human being being made out of earth, but we have the union of them and multiplying. Those cells multiply and create another human being, or made another human being. And that it made me wonder, what is the principle of that? You started that all the way from the beginning. What is it that you're saying with that, Father? And the word that came to my mind was echad. Our Father is one, and so are we. We are made in his image, and just like our Father, all humanity is one because he made Adam, and out of Adam, all humanity comes from. It comes from from those cells that then the children and the children's children. And it's interesting because our Father doesn't have children and nieces and nephews and cousins, and he only has children. And even when he talks about grandchildren, he calls them children's children. So it's it is the original creation. It is the firstborn. So we started talking about the firstborn last portion, because when this whole thing started with Moses, he told Moses, I will let my people go, let my firstborn go so that they can worship me. And if you don't let them go, I will take your firstborn. I will kill your firstborn. So from the get-go, God wasn't hiding anything, or the plagues just got out of hand and then all of a sudden became the death of the firstborn. No, from the get-go, he's telling Pharaoh, this is what I'm going to do. And I will show you who I am, and I will teach Egypt who I am. And but the final, and he doesn't explain that there are going to be 10 plagues, but he does say the final action that God is going to take. If you don't let my firstborn go, I will take your firstborn. So we see in this that God is giving this firstborn nation, because everybody that he took, remember, it wasn't just the men were the firstborn, because when Moses is asking Pharaoh to let his people go, Pharaoh says, okay, well, just the men go and leave the women and the children here. And he goes, no, we are all going, men and women and children. So when that means that when God says my firstborn, it meant everyone. Also, even animals, because when he says, okay, you can take the women and the children, but leave the cattle behind, he goes, no, even the cattle is coming, because we don't know what it's going to take to worship God with. So even God redeems the firstborn of every animal. So it is the nation of firstborn. But when we see now they've been all taken out, now they're there, and Moses, who is the only one really talking directly to God and receiving all the information and passing it on to the people, or Aaron to tell the people. Well, actually, Aaron was just telling Pharaoh, speaking for him to Pharaoh, but Moses was speaking to the people by himself, for himself. Then we see that he just sits and did from morning to night. And what it tells me is that there is, okay, number one, we're all the same. We are all coming from the same cells. So there is no one more important than another. All human beings we're all equal. We all have different responsibilities. Obviously, as we can see here, he says, you can't do this alone. There is a task that needs to be done. He's not ignoring that. Yitro is not, but he's saying you don't have to do it all. So everything doesn't have to be all in one person's shoulders. I see this as a principle of the one-man show, where one does everything and everybody's there to watch. That's not the way our Father is showing us that he wants us to carry the mission, the calling that he has for us as firstborn, because remember, firstborn means that they're otherborn. So the firstborn was the one that passed on the principles, the important beliefs and rules of a household from the parents to the other siblings, younger siblings. And in the moment that the parents are no longer alive, then that firstborn becomes the father figure in the house. And also at that time, before the Levitical priesthood was formed, the firstborn was actually the priest of the home, was considered a priest in the home. So we see that taking place. Then also, that firstborn means that there's the calling to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob way back before all this. They end up being slaves in Israel and Egypt for 430 years, was that through them all the nations. So it went beyond just the nation of Israel. It went beyond them to all the nations are going to be blessed. They will not be able to be counted as the stars are in the sky or the sand of the seashore. So we know that this calling is a very large calling. And we can see also that he is telling them that this firstborn, as we see later on, is going to be royal priesthood. We're going to be ministers of reconciliation. We are the ambassadors of God. And he does this. We see also, and our mission would be to disciple others, as we see in the letter that Matthew wrote on chapter 28, and also just to reiterate that we are all equal, that we all have one Father. In Malachi 2:10, it says, do we not all have one Father? So he's saying we're all one. Did not one God created us? Why then do we break faith with one another so as to profane the covenant of our fathers? So it is important that we do remember that we are our brother's keeper, and that we do have a covenant that he has given us with one another, and for us to bless the nations, that when we are making divisions, us and them, and you're not in, and you're not one of us, and all this stuff that we do like children in a playground, we are profaning his covenant. So we continue where Jethro continues saying in verse 19, now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You be the people's representative before God, and you bring the disputes to God. Then admonish them about the statutes and the laws, and make known to them the way in which they are to walk, and the work that they are to do. Furthermore, you shall select out of all the people able men who fear God, men of truth, those who hate dishonest gain, and you shall place these over them as leaders of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them judge the people at all times, and let it be that they will bring to you every major matter, but they will judge every minor matter themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will carry the burden with you. If you do this thing and God commands you, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure. And all these people also will go to their places in peace. So the whole purpose of this is to make this this sojourning that we're all doing. We're all on the road back home. We're all on our way back to Eden. And the work to be done is a firstborn is just one out of many children, right? So the firstborn nation is just a tiny nation in the midst of a big world. So we have a lot of work to do, and we need to share it. We need to carry the load, with one another, helping one another so that we can endure. Because otherwise, if we do it alone, as Jethro is telling Moses, he would become senseless and foolish. He knows we can go to that place of murmuring and complaining. Oh, I'm burned out. I can't do this. This is horrible. And we carry on, and that was not the purpose. Because then the people hear us and say, well, what kind of God? So they got out of Pharaoh's. They give up Pharaoh's master, but now they have another one that is worse than him or as bad as him, and that is not true. We get to that place because we don't do it the way he has called us to do. Divide it up, delegate. So if you remember, we did. I'm gonna share here the screen so you can look back to what we have seen. The chiastic structure that I showed you last week was about how we how the events teach us how to apply them to our walk. When we face war, like we have to fight the world, we're in the world, and that will bring thirst to us, but we have to put Yeshua. He is the stake, the tree that we put in the water to make it sweet. So we bring him into situations to help us sweeten our situation, whatever it is happening to us. It brings hunger. And they were hungry. They were complaining because they were hungry. They wanted, and God gave them manna, who is Yeshua. He gives us the word, and then he gives us meat, which is also Yeshua is the one that gives that. We see it in the Brit Hadashah or the New Testament, where it says that, I would be giving you meat, but you're not ready for it, so you can only take milk. And so this brings us to maturity, to look, to search, to be strong enough to develop, to grow, so that we can actually receive meat, which also takes us to the place where Moses hits the rock because they're thirsty again. And every time that we're thirsty, it's to come to him, to come to Yeshua, to be the living water, the only water that will satisfy us, as he tells the woman at the well in Samaria. And then we see the war with Amalek, which is this war that we will have from generation to generation. We're battling with our own flesh. So I see now what we just went through in this chapter 18, another chiastic structure. And it is, as you can see here, it's between the people, and he says, how to judge matters between the people, not to be alone, because you're going to wear out yourself and the people, to delegate, and the tasks will be too heavy and not alone. So if you, as he repeated, alone first and alone next, at the end, I realized, we have another chiastic structure here. So let's see how would that, if it is or not. So you see the first time he says alone, he says, do not stay alone. Do not seclude yourself, separate yourself, be on this by yourself. That responsibility cannot be only on your shoulders. Then he says, why? Because you're going to wear yourself out, and the people. And then The middle would be that delegating to tens and fifties and hundreds and 1,000. This is not a one-man show. You need to be able to share this with others so that you don't, that word wear out, you don't become senseless or foolish. So what is the other side of that being worn out himself and the people? It would be that the task is too heavy for you. So then again, if this goes, either one goes too long because you are all by yourself, or the task is too much for only one person to do, they do have both the same thematic meaning. And then he literally repeats again at the end, you're not to do this alone. So we have there, again, do not separate yourself and do not take that whole responsibility on you. So this ends chapter 18, and we will do another short video for chapter 19 tomorrow. Have a great night.